single day.
All right, there we go. What's going on, family? How y'all doing? I pray that you all are doing well on Facebook. Appreciate you for those of you who are joining on the cast, who are joining on the video. I'm praying that you guys had an awesome Monday. It wasn't challenging, too difficult, but I pray that you're able to put things in perspective in regards to where you are and where you would like to be in life. Just know that God is always in control. And so we have to make sure that we give God the space to lead us and guide us like only he can. And I believe that that's exactly where we need to be. And so, listen, family, if you can do me a quick favor, if you can share this video to your friends and followers, not just saying it just to say it, but you never know, somebody may need to hear the content that will be shared in the next hour or so. So real quickly, without further ado, I want to bring in my brothers who will be engaging in the conversation. First off, we have CEO Gregory C. Scott Sr., who is on here. What's going on, my dear brother?
What's up, brother? I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you for this opportunity.
I appreciate you, man, tremendously. I appreciate you. Not only do we have Senior on the video, but we also have Gregory Scott Jr., who is an entrepreneur, a father in his own right, who is also killing the game over in Riverside. How you doing, my dear brother?
Good evening, gentlemen. I am doing great. If I hear any jokes about my dad looking as good as me, I'm leaving the shop. I'm leaving the video immediately.
For real. So, hey, family, for those of you who are on the stream, if by chance you have any questions, we are watching, at least I'm watching on Facebook, and we are taking into consideration all of your questions. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and put it in the comment section, and we will make sure that we add it to the live video stream. So what we're going to do is I'm going to share a quick video on YouTube. This is for those of you who are entrepreneurs, those of you who are interested in engaging in small business ownership. Also, those of you who are engaged in community development. Both of my brothers are also engaged in that aspect. But the reality is more than just trying to make additional income. I think bigger than that, it's about adopting a mindset of surviving and conquering. Surviving and conquering. You do not have to die in this. You don't have to get swallowed up in this, but you are going to need a strategic mindset. And these two, in my opinion, are one of the greatest strategists I know that they are adapting, to the pandemic, to the situation. They're not only business owners, but they're also a strategic minds. And so that's the whole one of the major purposes of this conversation. And prayerfully, something will be said that will be beneficial to you. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share this video real quickly, and then we are going to get started with our conversation. All right.
companies. We look at even sales of monitors, of laptops, all of these things. If people are creating the infrastructure at home, then this could really accelerate that trend of flexible working. You look at online shopping, this is something that had already taken off, but it was still a smaller percentage of the market than physical shopping was. So all of a sudden, the companies like Ocado and and Amazon, all of a sudden you're seeing surges in demand. And I don't think this may taper off, but I don't think this is something that's going to fully reverse.
Well, then how can companies adapt to this? I mean, especially given this huge amount of uncertainty over just how long these lockdowns are going to last. What sort of changes should companies?
All right, family, I'm going to try it one more time. I apologize for the technical delay. Let me go ahead. Now I got the sound going, so I want everybody to get a chance to hear it. Here we go.
Well, the global crisis is hurting business, but not all companies are losing money. Let's take a look at some corporate winners here. Now, with more people working from home, demand for technology that enables online group meetings has been growing rapidly. Now, shares in video conferencing company Zoom have risen by 50% since February. Similarly, demand for TV shows and movies to watch at home has soared, so much so streaming services, Netflix and YouTube, are reducing the quality of their streaming in Europe to ease pressure on the internet. Well, supermarkets also say they're busier than ever. Now, sales at British retailer Sainsbury's are up by almost a quarter, and millions are turning to online fitness classes and home workouts. Shares in US home gym equipment supplier Peloton rose by 14% just last month. So which other businesses are benefiting from the pandemic? Let's speak to Craig Earlham. He's senior marketing analyst at trading platform Oanda, and he joins us now live from London. Craig, so among the dire economic forecasts we've been hearing, there has been some good news for some sectors. Is this likely to last?
In some cases, I think so. In the pharmaceutical sector, you're probably going to see some winners and some gainers, depending on who's first to market with drugs to try and deal with this dreadful situation. But in all of these terrible situations, there is opportunities, and this is just another example of that. You look at some of the trends which were materializing prior to this, which have really benefited from people staying at home. So you look at the working from home trend as an example. You look at the video conferencing companies. We look at even sales of monitors, of laptops, all of these things. If people are creating the infrastructure at home, then this could really accelerate that trend of flexible working. You look at online shopping, this is something that had already taken off, but it was still a smaller percentage of the market than physical shopping was. So all of a sudden, the companies like Ocado and and Amazon, all of a sudden you're seeing surges in demand. And I don't think this may taper off, but I don't think this is something that's going to fully reverse.
Well, then how can companies adapt to this? I mean, especially given this huge amount of uncertainty over just how long these lockdowns are going to last. What sort of changes should companies be looking at prioritizing here?
I think companies are already adapting to this. Some of them are just fortunate they were in the right place at the right time. You take a company like Zoom that many people maybe a month ago hadn't even heard of, that all of a sudden everyone knows of. Most people have the app on their phone at this point for video conferencing. They were just in the right place at the right time. They were following the correct trend, but this has just given them an enormous surge. You look at restaurants, they're going to have to adapt very quickly. Store retailers, they're going to have to adapt very quickly to these changing trends. The behavioral changes maybe for the next 12 months is probably going to weigh on a number of these as well. So it's about home deliveries. How can you get more into people's homes? Things like YouTubers, the fitness classes that you've just alluded to. There's plenty of areas for opportunity here, and old industries are going to have to adapt to a changing consumer behavior.
Well, let me ask you about these opportunities then, because lots of investors have been watching the markets very, very anxiously. So is this then a good time to reconsider types of investments rather than pulling out of the markets entirely?
Well, I mean, I think when you're looking at the market, which is down as it is, it's never is a case of just pulling everything out entirely and putting everything in entirely, selling at the top, buying at the bottom. These kind of old cliches. What you've got to look at is a market which is heavily discounted now, which I do think there's going to continue to be ongoing volatility in. So if you are looking to buy certain stocks now, we've probably missed that first wave in some of these companies, but I think there's plenty more opportunities that are still there. You've got to accept that there may be downside before you maybe see any return on that investment. So maybe think longer term because of the market volatility, which we're going to continue to see. But I think there's so many opportunities that are still out there. Yes, there are some stocks which are going to continue to struggle. The airlines, I think it's going to not be a difficult 6 months. I think it's going to be an extraordinarily difficult 3 or 4 years. But there are plenty of opportunities out there for companies that are well positioned, but also getting lucky and also, again, adapting their model very quickly.
Certainly winners and losers. Craig Earlham there.
All right, gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Yep,
We can hear you.
awesome, thank you. All right, so real quickly, the reason why I want to at least play that video is because I wanted us to engage in a conversation on the mindset, not just, again, of starting a business, but the mindset of a person who needs to survive in this challenge. One thing that really stood out for me from the analysts is that they were saying is that even though all the companies are being impacted, all of them are not suffering. They're all not dying. Some are learning to adapt. Some are learning to adjust. And so I would assume for a person who works a 9 to 5 or someone who actually owns their own business, same thing when it comes to ministry, someone who pastors a church versus someone who serves the church, all of us are being impacted, but all of us do not have to drown in it or suffer from it. So a senior, I'm gonna call you a senior and junior, so just to differentiate. Senior, give your thought on the mindset of a survivor, the mindset of a person who, you know, is able to look at life or look at a deficit, look at challenges and not drown in it, but make a decision. I can still conquer, I can survive, I can endure through this.
Wow, I mean that's a loaded question. But at the same time, you know, especially as we are in a pandemic and in a crisis, it does take a certain kind of mindset. And so, here one thing I've learned in a crisis and how you lead through a crisis is being able to gather data really quickly, is being able to communicate to all the necessary parties, and sometimes over communicate really quickly. And then you got to make quick decisions, quick, swift, and drastic decisions to kind of really move the needle.
Yeah.
And this is my long way of really answering your question, because I know when the pandemic first hit us, I had to quickly gather my team. I had to communicate to a lot of different parties. I had to make some drastic decisions, like sending some people home.
Wow. So you were the one who was letting people go, like you had to downsize.
Oh yeah, like that. Yeah, I was part of that group. Yeah, so I'm saying all that to say, the mindset is not to shrink during a crisis, but the mindset is to stretch yourself during a crisis. Because this is something I don't have a blueprint for this. There's no playbook for it. Yeah. We've never seen this before, so we were reacting until we can get in front of it and then become more proactive. So the mindset, and when you're dealing with a crisis, whether it's being an entrepreneur, whether you're dealing with it personally or whatever, is not to shrink from it, but to stand up in it, face it. Whether you're dealing with fears or whatever, but you have to stand up in it, face it. It's the only way you're going to be able to make decisions so you can move forward, and that's good for you personally.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with a crisis personally, you can shrink from it and hide, or you can stand up in it, face it. So you can make some decisions to move yourself forward. It's the same thing in business.
I love it. I love it. Scott Jr.
Awesome. That answer really highlights what has been going on, because I'm on the opposite spectrum. My business is in logistics, and I actually had to grow throughout this process. So since the pandemic hit, we've hired over 25 new associates just to meet up with the demand, and we're still not there. And one thing about business with me, I believe that business is a set of systems and processes that you can put in place. But one thing I realized that you can't make a system around leadership. Leadership is something that's within you.
Wow.
So I had to really have an exercise in leadership, because I had to be present. I had to be able to manage the growth, but then had to make sure that everyone felt safe, because think of the fear. Think of the worry of having to operate on a day-to-day basis, not knowing if your family's going to be safe, not knowing if what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, you may bring home to your family. So trying to manage that, to have the right supplies, to over deliver to my team and let them know that not only do we appreciate them, but we're going to put them in just the pathway to be successful and safe while they're doing their daily job. So it's been an interesting spectrum that, you know, we go from one end where some people have to contract, and you go to another end when some people are growing. And it's interesting to see how that shift has definitely taken place.
Yeah. And one thing I do want to say, when I said I sent people home, it wasn't because we laid off a bunch of people. It was about, as Greg talked about, it's about safety. And so making sure people were safe. And so when you are leading, as he talked about systems and all, but when it comes to leadership, you gotta make sure that the people around you are safe and healthy. So I got some staff members who are 65 and over. Immediately, they're a vulnerable population. Immediately, we sent them home. So I just wanted to clarify. I didn't mean lay people off.
Oh yeah,
that it was about safety and getting people home, getting people in the right position so that we can move forward.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, let me redefine how I'm gonna identify. So Gregory and Greg. Let me do it that way. Make it better.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So I feel like we jumped in the middle, and now let's backtrack, because I think there are some people who are watching the video, and I love the principle that you made a statement, Greg, about decision making, and also that there's no really system for leadership. You put someone in a position, and they can develop leadership skills throughout that. But when it comes to, I guess, owning or taking on the responsibility, I guess you don't automatically always come into it. Maybe you guys can give your thought process on leadership development. So before you even engage in, okay, let me take a step back. For context, Gregory, give us at least a snapshot of what do you do? I know you're a CEO of a company. Kind of give us a snapshot of what you do now, and maybe kind of give us a view in your leadership development, maybe kind of how it started that led you up to this point. Same thing with you, Greg. What do you do now? What is your company? And also kind of give us maybe a snapshot of the progression of your leadership development.
Awesome. I serve as president and CEO of an organization called Community Action Partnership. In our organization, our mission is really about helping families and individuals, partnering with corporations, and dealing with poverty. And so I consider myself probably more as a social entrepreneur, because I create programs and create systems and create businesses in the nonprofit sector that is dealing with social justice or social innovation or issues that are dealing with society.
Okay,
and
so you said social entrepreneur?
Yes.
Hey, real quick, can you give us? I've never heard that before. Give a little definition of that. You almost like gave inclusive, like we're like, wait, there's another type of entrepreneur.
Yeah. So some people are entrepreneurs because they want to make a gadget. They want to make an Apple computer. Yeah. They want to open up a restaurant. And so that's one aspect of being a entrepreneur. My bottom line is not about how much money, although it takes money to do what we do, and I raise a lot of money. Our bottom line is, how do we change people's lives? And so we create programs, and we advocate, and we deal with public policy, and we deal with we partner with corporations. So we do a lot of people development is really where my business is. And so in that realm is more of a social entrepreneur. It's seeing a need, because I'm probably skipping ahead, but being an entrepreneur is about seeing a need and filling a need. And so whether it's social entrepreneurship or a restaurant in a certain community, or when I was growing up, we had a paper route. We were selling newspapers when I was growing up. And even back then, I had a paper route, had my route, but I was filling, because no one else was doing it. So I was able to fill a need in the projects doing a paper route.
Got it.
And so business is about filling a need. And so I do that from a social justice or from a social entrepreneurship perspective. So I run an organization and have built my career around being an executive in the nonprofit sector, and helping people really change their lives in a nutshell. So that's kind of what I do. So my organization is probably about a $30 million organization. We have government contracts. We raise money, and we impact 200,000 people every single month.
Wow, I love it. So give us a snapshot the leadership development that led you from. Say you were you say a paper boy. You were kind of giving out papers. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was selling papers.
What's that?
I know y'all too young for this. I'm like,
what is that? I remember
What's
the
a newspaper?
I'm sure. Right. I'm showing my age. I think I was not the kid who was thinking at 12, 13 years old that one day I'm going to be a CEO. That was not and that was a product of my environment. That was not my experience.
Wow.
And so my experience at that age was one day I want to make $50,000. And the only reason why I picked $50,000 because I had an uncle who was making $50,000 at the time. He was the only person that I know that was making $50,000. And so I was a product of my environment.
Yeah.
But I think through the system and it's something powerful about mentorship and people believing in you.
Yeah.
And I think people saw more in me than I saw in myself. So as I grew, opportunities began to come my way because for a long time I had these two older African-American men who were mentors of mine who just believed in me, like unapologetically just believed in me. And the more they believed in me, the more I got confidence and the more I started out as a substitute teacher to I started teaching the GED, to running a national organization, to becoming a CEO because somebody believed in me back then. So my leadership development started with somebody believing in me.
Wow.
Then from there, it's taking it personal. It's how do I grow?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. Certainly not the same person I was 20 years ago. So I feed myself like every single day. I feed myself information. I'm listening to Eric Thomas. I'm listening to John Maxwell. I bombard my brain cells with people who are at another level than I am because I've learned. I used to want to be the smartest person in the room, but I learned that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm in the wrong room. So I got to find a different room to be a part of. And so, in a nutshell, that's kind of my leadership development.
Would you consider that your ambition is driven by the next level thinking mindset of the people that you connect yourself with?
Oh, absolutely. I'm in rooms now where I know people don't think like I do, and I'm frustrated that they don't. I know people in my life. It's having a conversation with them frustrates me because they don't think, and not that I'm thinking at such a high level. I'm trying to get there. I'm going through my own process, but it frustrates me that certain people don't have a certain mindset to even just to engage. I don't from my our current president, all the way down. It's frustrating when people don't have the right mindset, especially around leadership.
No, I totally understand. Greg, I know you two. You've given me opportunity. We had conversations to be in certain rooms, and on top of that, you create opportunities for connections. But I feel like I don't know. It's crazy, man. I don't know. Give us a snapshot from your starting point to where you are now. Just kind of like your father, there are some doors that have been open to you. It's not that you've been knocking on them, but it's like the opportunities were presented to you. And I think that's a great message to people who are on the stream, that some of us are working so hard to force a door open, but sometimes it's about being in the right position. And then when you're in the right position, you know how to navigate in those rooms. So maybe kind of give us a snapshot through your life between where you first started to where you are now. And how do you find comfort in yourself while you're in rooms that you know you don't qualify for?
Perfect. That's awesome. And it's so, I want to say, beautiful to be on a live stream with my father because it's literally like reading a book. So he is the initial chapters of that book, and I'm somewhere in the middle, and my son is going to be somewhere down the line, and we'll continue the legacy.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful, and I'm taking a conversation that we had, behind the scenes. Exactly, behind the scenes, but there's a beauty in, the generations going from survival to thriving. So surviving to thriving, because the things that he went through and he overcame now became my stepping stone. So I got to step on his shoulders. So my genesis is really, he had this awesome library at the house, and I would be 12 years old, and I'd be stealing.
Oh wow!
I'd be reading those books.
Yeah.
So you're talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I knew about Donald Trump way before he was the president, because we were looking at The Art of the Start, The Art of the Deal. So it's a beautiful thing to be able to step on the shoulders of the generation before you, and not only have them propping you up, but knowing that you're going to do the same for the next generation. And I think that's how we get to what we consider generational wealth, not on a financial aspect, but on a development aspect. Did I do the things to give my legacy or my children the opportunity to have a step up, a platform that they can be taller on? And that's the beautiful thing about being on this live stream with my father. But to get along your question, I have an experience that I remember when I first started out. I had my first business, and we were going to a networking event, and I was at a local college. And I remember getting there, and I got there early, and I was so nervous. My first business, I was a couple months in, but I needed to be in this room. But as I saw the people who were going into the college to go to the networking event, none of them looked like me. And I got nervous.
Yeah.
And I ended up putting my car in reverse and leaving. Wow. And I remember driving home feeling so disappointed, saying, why didn't I feel like I belonged? I needed to be there. I just couldn't come to it.
Yeah.
And I remember having a revelation of, listen, you are worthy. You're where you're supposed to be. And that's going to come from the inside. Nobody else is going to tell you that. You got to walk around with that confidence.
To validate that or to affirm that, you have to do it yourself.
But guess what? Our society tells us we need other people to validate our success.
Yeah.
I was already successful, but I didn't feel that way, because guess what? I wasn't standing in front of a Lamborghini. I wasn't on the beach with my feet up on Instagram. Right. So it's different when you're growing up in a society that tells you need the validation that says you're a business owner, and if you don't, then you're pretend. So it took time to get there, but there's no such confidence when you're in a room that not only do you belong, but that you bring value, and that whoever you meet, they're getting value. So you being there is a blessing, because you're going to give value to somebody else, right? And you start going into these rooms knowing what you can bring to the table. Yeah, you won't be fearful. You won't walk in anxiety.
Yeah, you know what? Even I don't consider myself to be a business owner, but a spectrum in regards to communication, and there has been some income that comes from it. I know one of the challenges that I've always dealt with is the issue with that comparison, where we kind of treat others like a temperature check. Just like you would go to your room and you want to make it warmer or colder, you go to the temperature check and it tells you it's 72 degrees. I want it to go hotter. Sometimes I look at my own life and consider, is my temperature right based on my reflection of how someone else is doing? Am I making enough money as somebody else, or am I making enough of a significant impact as somebody else? But you're saying is finding value in yourself. It's almost like having to have that moment of introspection and consider that there's value, even if it doesn't reflect the people you're surrounded by. Can we, before we get into that, actually, I got a question. Little Tiana Scott, the daughter of Gregory Scott and brother Greg Scott, she had a question. She said, how do you manage family, social life, and running a business? How do you manage it all? I would assume that, finding balance is probably one of the greatest challenges of an entrepreneur, of a person of influence. In your opinion, what are the keys to managing or finding some type of balance between all those things? Let me start with Greg first, and then we'll go to Gregory.
Sacrifice. So there's give or take. There's only 24 hours in the day. For me personally, my wife and kids have sacrificed a lot to allow me to chase this dream in the first place. So I almost feel like I'm indebted to them, right? So I almost feel guilty when I have to spend too much time out, and I really try to manage that, because it would be a shame for me to have this success and to have influence, but them not be able to partake in it. So I've really taken that challenge to make sure that whatever I do, that they're involved to the best that I can.
Got it, Gregory.
I think for me, like I said earlier, there was no blueprint. So I was a teenage dad. So that young man there when he was born, that became my why, and it became my almost get emotional about it because I was broke as a joke. Like,
wow.
I was like broke.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing. All I knew is we got this son, and I'm trying to go to college. I'm trying to balance all of that at a very young age as a teenager. But I knew I had to finish school, and I knew there's certain things I had to do.
Yeah.
And I think, one is kind of creating your why. Why is creating your why. As he talked about, his why was his family, and he had a young family, and that became his why. And for me, it was the same thing. I had a young family. I moved from Jersey to Boston, and then my daughter came, and then my other daughter came, and I traveled a lot during that time. So it's like, how do you create balance? And so I had to find ways to kind of almost like force myself to. Greg was in the basketball, so guess what I did? I learned how to coach.
Wow. So that wasn't your original, like he wasn't just natural and.
Nah, I'm going to work. I wasn't thinking about coaching, but one, he has some talent. Obviously.
Yeah.
But I learned how to coach, and
That's
so know what coaching did. It forced me to spend time with him, and then it was kind of balancing all of that. So, make a long story short, balance is important, and he learned it before I did, because I wanted it so bad to be successful that I drowned myself in work until later when I figured out that I how to create more balance, and I needed my mentors to show me how to create more balance, because otherwise I felt like I had to be at every meeting, I got to go to everything, and he learned it a lot sooner than I did. At some point I learned it, but creating that balance and making sure your family always feels like, in the street, I'm Mr. Scott when I go to work.
Yeah.
At home, I'm just dad.
Yeah. yeah. Right.
But there is no title greater than just being dad.
Yeah.
And so it's creating that balance and being okay with my title is dad. And when daddy comes home, hey daddy, that's a big deal.
For sure.
So creating that balance and knowing what's important, being with people, your family has to understand that sometimes you got to make the sacrifice. He talks about sacrifice. Sometimes you got to make the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Sometimes your friends have to make the sacrifice. But if you are with friends, talk about balance. I think this was Tiana's question too, in terms on a social perspective. If you're not with friends who understand who you are and what you're about and helping you grow, guess what? You got the wrong friends.
Listen, Mike.
Yeah.
To add on to that, I have lost more friends by chasing this dream and getting what's considered success than, when I was just kind of minimizing myself and fitting in, right? So there has to be some sort of progression as well. And sometimes people can't go with you to every level. It's unfortunate, and we can still love and we can still care about, and we can still have those conversations, but not everyone can go to every step and every level because they're not getting the same downloads and they're not going at the same pace as you. So that'd be almost unfair of you to expect that everyone's going to understand what you're doing. So we got to have a little bit of empathy for, those around us, but then also realize that if you're on a mission and you really believe in what you're doing and the value of that is going to be impactful to this world, you got to chase that. You owe it to yourself to chase that. It's a disservice not to.
Yes.
Mike, I hate to interrupt, but he's inspired me. He's inspired me a little bit. I don't want people to miss this point. The people who got you to one level may not be the people who get you to the next level.
It's good.
Remember I talked about the mentors I had coming up?
Yeah.
They got me to that level, but guess what I had to do? I had to find some other mentors to get me to the next level.
Got it.
I'm currently in the process of getting some other mentors
for the next
to get
level.
me to the next, because there's another level that I'm chasing. And so and that goes with your friends. It goes with, I got some family members that we're not as close as we were back then because I'm not there anymore.
Yeah.
I'm growing. And so when you look at business or leadership or whatever it is, or you got to understand that the people who got you to level 1 won't be the people who get you to level 5.
Yes.
And along the way, you're gonna lose some people. But guess what? You're gonna gain some people, and you're gonna gain some people who can change your life. And so you got to be. I'm chasing when I go out to networking events or whatever. Know what I'm chasing?
Huh.
I need to meet somebody today who's going to change my life. And if I don't meet that person going to change my life, then I'm probably in the wrong room. It's the same thing in ministry, right?
Yeah.
When you grow in ministry, sometimes you got to move to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's okay to have another teacher, another father in the spirit. It's okay and not feel guilty about that. But sometimes we stay too long at one level and we never grow and we die frustrated.
Definitely.
Versus kind of moving
And
on.
every mentor, no, you're good. Every mentor has different strengths. I think one of the lessons I've learned is that, a mentor may be like, this is my mentor in business. This is my mentor in ministry. This is my mentor in family. I think the mistake that we often make when it comes to mentorship or when it comes to somebody, kind of being like a big brother, big sister, we expect that one person to be the all in be all for every area of our lives, which necessarily isn't always good. Sometimes we have to pick out which strengths are good and let them be a mentor in that aspect. I reach out to the person when I need advice for family. I reach out to the person when I need advice for business. When it comes to ministry, when it comes to just getting my mind together, there are therapists, there are psychiatrists who specialize in certain practices. They're not just a psychiatrist over everything. They are family practice, marriage practice, abuse. And so I think it's necessary for us to understand the importance of that. I wrote a note that was a hybrid answer that you guys gave. I thought was really good. A clear why helps facilitate the need to sacrifice and work for a better future.
Yeah.
Once again, a clear why helps facilitate the need to sacrifice and work for a better future. And so prayerfully, family, those of you who are listening to the wisdom principles of both Gregory and Greg, if anything more than just starting a business, again, it starts with the right mindset. And let's all be honest that this pandemic has infected or impacted our ability to see clearly, has ability to drive, to work, to move. I mean, a lot of us, we're fighting with laziness, procrastination. We're conflicted and challenged, but I love the principles that these men shared. They talked about the need to have a why, but also the importance of sacrifice, coming together. During this pandemic, this is like where everyone should be on the track and like getting ready to sprint. Like once they open the door, I know exactly where I need to go, right? The doors are closed now, but once the doors open, is your first stop the mall? Is your first stop like the movies? Maybe your first stop should be on getting a leg up onto the next level or the next place that you're supposed to go into. Which brings me to my next question I want to ask you guys. My bishop, James Ray Taylor, he shared a question and he talked about starting a business startups. And so I want you guys to kind of use today's lenses while you answer this question. The question is, what are the must-haves in starting a business? Now, I'm sure both of you would agree that 10 years ago, it'd be totally different. But now during the pandemic, things have shifted and changed. And so I want you guys, if you can, I know you're in different spectrums, but give us some nuts and bolts. What would be the first steps in starting a business today, moving forward as we go through the pandemic? I'm gonna start with Gregory.
And I was gonna throw the baton over to Greg Jr. and let him rock with that.
Come on, Greg.
So I'll do that. I'll do that, and then I'll come back.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks for the question, James. I think the biggest thing you can do right now is forecast. So think about where we are right now, and that video that you shared earlier, it gave you the keys to what businesses are thriving and which ones are not anymore. So the ones that had dreams of opening a restaurant, maybe that's not the right move right now. The ones that wanted to, start that business that required a lot of people to get into the same room at the same time, maybe that's not the right thing to do right now. So first thing you want to do is check out the landscape, check out the environment. If I was going to start all over again, I would go to Shopify.com, find a product and start selling.
Okay,
the biggest
stop.
thing we need. Okay,
Let's
okay.
take a time real quick. Okay. Shopify.com, because I'm putting down the notes and I'm putting also in the comment section. You said you would go to Shopify.com.
Correct. And I
Right.
would build a website.
Okay.
And I would.
Building a website is so important today.
You have to have a web presence. You have to have. We're a digital society now. So you need to have. Before we even go there, you need to study how to market online. That's the very first thing. How do you market online? How do you find your target customer online? And then you'll find the platform for how to distribute whatever you want to sell, whether it's your knowledge. So if you have a knowledge of being a leader, if you have a knowledge of starting businesses, you should now look, how can I monetize this? How can I market myself? How can I get a platform? And then how can I turn this into an ebook, a webinar, something that I can distribute that's going to provide value and that people who are already sitting at home are going to be able to consume, right? So that's the environment that we're playing in now. So start finding the products that are going to benefit those who are at home, those who may have lost their job, and what can you do to add value to them? Because we're going to pay for a few things. We're going to pay for distraction. You see Netflix is booming. YouTube is booming. Music is booming because we want to be distracted during this time. You see Postmates is booming because we need our food delivered. We need our groceries delivered. So you want to start thinking along the lines of, what do people need right now? That's business.
The needs,
Find the opportunity, solve the need. Find a way to facilitate someone's need and they will pay you for it.
So he certainly hit on a lot of great points, which is why I wanted him to hit it first, because the value that he's going to talk about that he talked about with Shopify, or the value when it comes to marketing, all those things are really important. I think the most important thing he said was find the need and fill it.
Yes, sir.
Find the need and fill it. And so if you think about business from a historical perspective, most millionaires were built during a crisis. There's a crisis going on.
Wow.
They found the need and they filled it during a crisis.
That's good, man.
So I would say if you can predict, most people who make a lot of money in business, if you can predict what's going to happen 2 to 5 years before it happens, and you're the first guy on the block or the first gal on the block to make it happen because you're in front of the next trend.
Come on, prophets.
That's how.
Prophets, where y'all at?
Yeah, you got to be prophetic and you got to be profitable at the same time. But it's almost like, but he talked about it. What's the product? What's the trend? What's the need? That and I'm saying exactly the same thing. Is find the need. If you can predict what's going to happen before it happens, you're gonna be able to make a lot of money.
Now let me ask,
Mike.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry to interject.
Yeah.
And beyond business, if you're sitting out, if I see on your social media you said you watched all of Netflix, this live stream's not for you, because there's no way we have all this free time and you haven't learned about real estate or the stock market or how to invest or how to even create a dollar. This is the time when you are supposed to do so.
Yeah.
There's no time like the greatest, especially if you find yourself laid off and you're getting an income while you're at the house. There's no better time to be an entrepreneur, because now you have seed money and time. Those are two things that don't really collide they don't collide often, but when they do, you got to take advantage of it. So I can see this time, and my wife, she really doesn't speak over me too much, but she is just speaking over this whole time frame, saying that this is going to be a time frame of growth, because it's nothing but time and opportunity, and a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines, and it's going to benefit those who are hungry and want to grow and want to seek the knowledge to grow.
Yeah, and the other thing that's important too is about branding yourself. And so if you happen to be my friend on social media and you go through my timeline without even having a conversation with me, you can figure out what I do. You can figure out what I'm about. I may throw some jokes in there. I may throw something about the Lakers in there every once in a while.
All right.
But in general, there is no doubt what I'm about. If you just go through my timeline and just go back 5 years.
Yeah.
Go back. I'm consistent. I'm still the same. I've grown. So there's some quotes that have been elevated, but I'm still the same. But going back to your original question, in terms of this time period,
right?
Collaboration is important.
That's good. That's good.
So being able to collaborate with other people right now is important. You know why? Because you may not have all the skill set and all the gifts, but my partner got it, and together, two is better than one all day long.
Come on, man.
Like all day long, two is always better than one. And so if you're talking about entrepreneurship, don't forget about being able to collaborate. Financial forecasting.
Mm-hmm.
The video talked about it earlier in terms of looking at investments. Listen, I got a couple of tips for you. Look at Delta. Stock has gone down a little bit, but it's going to come back.
Yeah.
There's some other things out there that oil, or there's other things out. It's a different conversation, but and I'm learning it. Guess what I'm doing? Because I'm working from home. Know what I'm doing?
What?
I'm learning about investments.
Huh. Interesting.
Oh yeah. So I'm working from home most days right now. But guess what I'm doing? I'm learning some things I would not. I would normally be on a plane right now going somewhere.
Right.
But guess I'm learning some things I didn't know before. Yeah. So as he talked about, I do watch Ozark on Netflix, by the way. Ozark is my
me too
is my show.
But guess what time? Guess what time I watch it? At like 11 p.m. after all the work's done.
Exactly. So value, find a need, fill it. Brand yourself. Who are you? Like if I really went on your Facebook, your social media handle and your social media tells me everything I need to know about you.
Yeah.
And so even when people request me, they don't know this, but when they request me, my friend, I go on their page and see what they're about.
Right.
And if I don't like what they're about, I don't know if it's cancel, ignore, or whatever. Or I got like 100 people really waiting right now, because if I don't know what they're about, I don't. So branding is important. Timing and position is important. So if you think about this time, how you're going to position yourself going forward, fill a need. There's so many nuggets that I think can come out of this pandemic that you should be excited and not sad right now. Like I'm excited. My business is growing. Things are growing. Other things I'm doing is growing. All those things are growing, and it's all also about who you're about. My son and I are on this live stream. If you hear our conversations right now, outside of the live stream, I'm talking about when we just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, what you doing? What's going on?" and we just check in. If you hear our conversations, we often say, this should be on a podcast."
Right. Yes.
If you would have heard the conversation 2 days ago about having a chief operating officer and why it's important to have a number two person, as a leader, why is it important to have a number two person? Or as a pastor, why is it important to have an assistant pastor?
Yes.
If you would have heard that conversation,
wow.
Those are the conversations you need to have. And I'm having that conversation with my son. And guess what? It's not about me just leaving a legacy or building a legacy. I learned too.
Wow.
There's some things I'm learning from him. There's some books he recommended I'm reading too.
Yeah.
As a leader, you got to be open to forever learning. If I go back to original question about leadership development, personal development, you got to be a learner all the time.
I love it. I love it.
I talk to
my listen, bro. It's wisdom, man. I'm in the comment section. Then we got 2 more questions. We're going to end the stream, but I pray, family, that you are getting some of these principles. Let me just kind of share 3 things that really stood out in regards to starting business. I wrote the first one: forecast, being able to forecast. So all of us would like to either add value to people, or we would like to make money for our families, create better positions. But I love the statement about forecasting and really taking time to consider landscaping, what exactly you would want to do, what do you feel like you're good at, what are you it is based on your city, your region, your location. Is your product or is your service, is it beneficial to them? Sometimes we have a great idea, but we'll fall flat because we're in the wrong location, or maybe we're trying to market to the wrong people. But if you actually forecast, if I use biblical scripture, considering Nehemiah, the Bible says that before Nehemiah starts rebuilding the walls of the generation, he forecasted. He looked at all the walls, the west gate, the east gate, south gate, north gate, before even pitching the idea of building the walls. He forecasted, he landscaped. Okay, this is what we need. We need this, we need that. Once he pitched the idea to the people, do you all believe we need to rebuild these walls? Everybody said, yeah, cool. I got the resources already. I already got the strategy. And where are the blacksmiths? Where are this or that? So I would suggest for someone to consider during this pandemic, this is a great time to forecast, to landscape. Yes, you want to make some more money. Yes, you want to be in a good position to add value, but maybe you need to prolong the stage of forecasting, prolong the space of landscaping. The second thing that I heard was said is study marketing your product. Study marketing your product. What does that look like? Branding. Gregory said it about that we have to consider how are others branding. The collaboration. I love it. So it's power partnership, people you're partnered with, but then the collaboration is whose stream am I on so I can learn from them, right? I'm not just collaborating. It's like not just collaborating just to offer, but it's also collaborating so I can receive, so I can benefit from, so I can learn from. And the last thing that really stood out was, I already said it, collaboration. So that was a good point. So let me give you guys these last two questions and we're going to end the stream. Trinice Givens, she asked, when was your aha moment in working your business? Like, I'm meant to be here. I think, Greg, you said it earlier, that there were some doors that you were in and you were saying, man, I feel like I'm supposed to be here, but it seems like it's not growing. When was your aha moment that you're supposed to be in? And lastly, I want you guys to also add this second question. Tamika Watts, where's she at? Tamika Watts Lawrence, she asked, this is probably a hard one. What are some of the mistakes that you made that you could have avoided? So let's try to sandwich those together. So when was your aha moment that you kind of believed in the idea that you will be successful in your business? And also, if you can go back to your younger self when you first started, what were some of the mistakes that you made and you wish you could have avoided? So I'm gonna start. Let me backtrack. Go to Gregory first, and then we'll go down to Gregory.
Awesome. So like it too.
I would say to answer the first question and to tell you what to do is monetize your passion. So the moment when I got my aha moment is because I realized I was making an impact, and it felt like it felt like the right fit.
Right.
I was passionate about it. It felt right, and I saw the fruits of my labor. And then I said,
Hold on for a second. You said something real good, bro. You said you were able to measure your impact. You felt you had the right fit, but you said something about, what was the last thing you said about labor?
I saw the fruits of my labor.
You saw the fruits of your labor. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. And so that said, I think I'm on to something. Yeah. And then from there, how do I built my entire career around probably that moment where I felt like I was onto something, whether it was speaking or preaching or whatever. When you the Bible says they should know you by your fruits.
Yeah.
And as I begin to see fruit, and it felt right, it felt like it was a right fit. This is my lane, and I didn't want to be in somebody else's lane, and I was okay with that. That's when I knew, how do I monetize my passion? So I would say monetize your passion. I forget your second question. The second part of the question
was the mistakes that you made. What mistakes that you made in the past, and what would you do to avoid them if you can go back?
I didn't collaborate enough, and so I remember I said I thought I had to be the smartest person in the room.
Yeah,
I thought I had to be the smartest person in the room, and I was being competitive versus being collaborative. And so if I was able to do it again, I would do that. And I was insecure. To be transparent, I was insecure. So I tried to hide my insecurity by being competitive versus being open to being collaborative. So if I was able to do it again, that's what I would do.
Real quick, family, before I get to Greg, he says, monetize your passion. You have to see the impact that you're making. Does it feel right? Sometimes it's like a square in a circle peg. It doesn't feel right. I think some of us, we waste time trying to force something and it doesn't feel right. Maybe that's not your right fit. And lastly, he said, know the fruits of your labor. If it's fruitful, it's something that can possibly benefit you financially, your family, and also impact. And so I think that was really good. Greg, your thoughts?
By the way, this cup right here came from
yes.
my son did. I want to do a commercial. I'm not sure it's appropriate.
Come on.
But this cup right here came from an entrepreneurial idea from my son a few years ago.
Yes.
And so that's why I'm drinking this. I'm drinking this cup from a few years ago from a business he had as an entrepreneur. My Black Panther cup.
Respect. Respect.
All right, Greg. So once again, you got 2 questions, or that's a?
I got it. So my aha moment, and I'm gonna drop a wealth principle for you guys. My aha moment was when I started my first business and I made my first dollar. I said, "Oh my goodness! I learned how to create a dollar."
Yeah.
And what I learned through that is the same amount of effort it takes you to make $1, you can make $1 million.
Interesting.
Once you have the idea that facilitates a need in the marketplace and people are willing to pay you for your product, your service, or even your person, the next thing you have to do is scale. You already got the machine rolling. So now it's scaling. So for the example, I started off my logistics business with 5 people. I said, okay, we made $1. Okay, this is how we do it. We service the contract. Now that same logistics company in a year and a half has 115 employees. So it took one money-making idea, service, and product and said, now how do I put people in place? How do I employ others so that they can take care of their families and we can scale this business? So I learned once you make $1, all you got to do is learn how to scale that dollar up. Keep doing what you're doing, but on a bigger level strategically. So that was my aha moment. Once I made $1, I said you can make, it's the same, it takes the same amount of effort to make 1 to $1 million. And I guess the challenges I had to answer the second question was with my first business. I ended up quitting my job to start that business. And I learned really, really early on, there's a difference when you need to think short-term versus long-term. What I would have done looking back in hindsight was I would have kept my position and I would have built my job. I would have built my company after I got off of work. So from the hours of 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., I would have kissed my kids goodnight. I would have tucked everybody in, and then I would have worked on my business because I lost my main income. So any income I made from the business, I had to use. I had to eat. I had to pay rent versus being able to say, okay, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to reinvest it. Business is about being able to reinvest. So it's difficult to think long-term when you have immediate needs. So that was the challenging part for me, probably quitting my job and learning that essentially you got to have something going and you can always build. But the beautiful thing is when you learn how to create $1, you start scaling it up. And then once it supersedes what you're doing currently, that's when you can make the transition and go full-time in your business.
Do you feel like you jumped too early? Is that what it is? Or
yeah, I could have built it more to be more sustainable.
Got it.
Right? Because I ended up selling that business.
Yeah.
But all the money that came, I used instead of being able to reinvest it. So instead of selling it for 5 times, I could have sold it for maybe 15 times. You know what I mean? So it was successful, but there's little nuggets that you learn throughout even your successes.
So let me ask this: when do you know that it's a good time to jump? I feel like there's a hurdle or there is a fence. So you got your 9 to 5, and let's say you're doing a side business, and it's like your passion is here, but you know that this is not only maintaining your financial stability, security, and all that good stuff, benefits, but you're starting to see some motivation, or you're starting to see some how can I say, some residual income starting to come in. When do you know it's good to jump the fence and let go of the that 9 to 5? Like, is there a time limit or there's a a point that you believe that this is a good time for me to go ahead and go full time with that?
I actually think it's a time when you are like Jim Rohn says it like this: work full time on your job and part time on your empire.
I love it.
Full time on your job, part time. He says full time on your job, part time on your fortune. My answer to that, and Greg probably has an answer too, is the moment your fortune starts being able to pay your monthly bills, that's when I think it's time to focus on that, because now not on the one, you get one shot and then it can pay your bills that 1 month and you think you're a CEO, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Is when it's doing it on a consistent basis, then that's when you're onto something. That's when it's time to probably make the transition. But I would say work full time on your job, part time on your fortune. When your fortune starts taking the place of your full time job, being able to pay your bills, that's when it's time to leap and to upscale. I'll call it.
And upscale. I love it.
Yeah.
Greg, you got thoughts in regards to that transition?
Yeah, I mean, that was the perfect answer. All I can think about, and what I've been thinking about probably for the past 2 months, is how exposed we all got. We didn't realize that. We always knew that there were certain people that lived paycheck to paycheck, right, every 2 weeks. But we didn't realize that our own government was living paycheck to paycheck. It took us, seriously, it took us 2 weeks to almost shut this thing down and go into crisis mode, right? So we got to start changing our perception on what financial independence even looks like.
Yeah.
Because financial independence is not just $1 million. It's when your assets and what's coming in on a monthly basis is superseding your liabilities. So no matter what you do, when you wake up on the first, you know that all of your liabilities, all your bills, your cell phone, your rent, your food, your gas, your car is covered, and you have an excess. To me, that's wealth. Wealth isn't a dollar sign, because there's a lot of 10 millionaires that have $10 million worth of bills. So they're not wealthy in that sense. Wealth is when you start having your assets take care of your liabilities every single month, and it's almost indestructible. So that's what we're trying to build. I think we got exposed to realize that even those that have high incomes are in employment right now.
Yeah, man. Wow.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
You said the jump assets take care of your liabilities. Is that what you said?
Correct. So you want to build. So if on a monthly basis, it takes you $5,000 to live, but you have some stream of revenue that comes in on a monthly basis, and maybe it's $7,000. So you've covered your bills with $2,000 of excess. You're winning. That's a win.
Yeah.
Because no matter what you do, when you wake up on the first, you have an excess that you don't have to work any harder for, that you don't have to put in any extra dollars. And guess what? If the coronavirus hits again, instead of you scrambling to figure out how you're going to pay your rent, how you're going to eat, you're already covered because you have excess, and it comes on a monthly basis, and it's indestructible. So that's how I want us to switch our mindset and not just worry about making a bunch of income, but worry about making the income that has longevity. What income is going to come month after month and not just be a one-shot check? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No doubt. I love the fact I've been seeing it on the comment section, scale up. It's as sometimes we scale so high, and it's like you don't have the resources or even the wisdom to be able to manage effectively all this space. But I'm assuming the scaling up is managing what you can do at this level, mastering that, and then going to the next level. I think what's happening is when we see on television, we see someone who is all the way up here, but we negate all this time and space and energy. Gregory, you talked about now, even though you're not currently, you're not flying, you're taking the time to mentally scale up until you're physically in a position to be able to add, those actions, or maybe make some partnerships or collaboration. And so I think if anything, what you guys are doing is you're laying foundation again and shifting our mindset of how we approach not just ourselves, but also what we're able to produce. I believe every single person on this line, if you're not meant to be an entrepreneur, you're meant to be an influencer, or at least an impactor, someone who can make a greater significant impact. But we have to consider maybe scaling ourselves in a different aspect. Like I said, more than spending your time on just Netflix or Hulu. You can do that, and nothing wrong with that, but don't binge 8 hours when you can cut it in half and use the other 4 hours in developing yourself so that you can manage whatever's on the other side of this pandemic. Would you all agree?
Yeah, a lot of it, I 100% agree. A lot of it is mindset. I go back to how you started this conversation about mindset. And wealth is not about money, as Greg talked about. It's not about money. It's about mindset.
Yeah.
Poor mindset or poor people think week to week.
Wow.
That's why they say things like, I can't wait till it's Friday.
That's
thank God it's Friday. I can't wait for the weekend, because they have a poor mindset. They can only think week to week.
Yeah, man. That's so true.
Middle class mindsets only think month to month. The reason why middle class mindsets think month to month is because they got a mortgage and a car payment.
Wow.
So they only think about, I need to make enough money so I can pay my car payment and I pay my mortgage and my monthly credit cards, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Rich people think year to year.
Got it.
And wealthy people think decade to decade.
That's good. That's good.
And so, but none of that is about money. It's all about a mindset. It's a poor mindset. It's a middle class mindset. It's a rich mindset. It's a wealthy mindset. And so, one of the reasons why people win the lottery and then 2 years later they broke, mindset.
I love it.
If your money grows and you don't.
That makes sense. It makes sense. Listen, gentlemen, I appreciate y'all time, man. I pray that something was said, family, on this live. It is available both on YouTube and Facebook, and I pray that you all can share it to your friends and followers. If anything, it was more than just about starting a business, but it was also about redefining or redeveloping your mindset in regards to whatever you feel led to. Heard a lot of new terms tonight. I didn't even know about social entrepreneurship, but it reminds me of an individual who, again, maybe like a pastor or a communicator, a motivational speaker, or like I said, someone who's right. Community engaging. You know, I think it's understanding what lane that you can run in. Like there are different tracks when it comes to running track. There is the long run. There is the short run. There are different bursts. And so we have to consider what track can we run on, and really kind of look down the road and just see if we can maintain our press. Everyone's endurance is different, but I think all of us can adapt and adjust effectively even during this pandemic. And so I know there's a lot of areas that we did not hit, but I pray something was said that really benefit a lot of people. So give us a last thought process from both of you guys, kind of like a last saying. I'll start with Greg, and then we'll finish off with Gregory.
Well, first, thank everyone who tuned in. Thank you, Michael, just for having the conversation. Very necessary and very needed. I want whoever's listening and whoever will, eventually see this to realize that you don't have to be an entrepreneur. It's not for everybody, right? So let's get that, established right away. But what you do need to know how to do is you need to learn how to create for yourself.
That's good, man.
They used to say you need to learn how to grow your own food and be able to live off the land. Now you got to learn how to create a dollar, because you can have your main job, but if you learn how to create another $500, $1,000, $1,500, you're now being able to take care of some of those stresses that you had before. Those are now relieved, because guess what? You now have something that takes care of your car payment, your rent, your groceries. So a lot of the day-to-day things that we're dealing with can be alleviated just by you learning how to create a dollar, right? So take the principles of this and learn how to create. Don't strive to be something just because that's what society is telling you. But strive to do what you can to better your family and to create some sort of platform or pedestal that your next generation and your next kin can stand on and take it to the next level.
I love it. Very good. Gregory?
Well, I like Greg said, I want to thank you, Michael, for this opportunity and thinking of us, right? In this process, because you could have picked out anybody else in the world. And the fact that you thought about the Scots during this process, I'm grateful and I'm humbled and I'm honored by that. And then certainly want to thank, my son. It's like, man, who's this dude?
Right.
Where you come from? But I am so proud super like daddy proud, godly proud, all the way. I couldn't be. If someone would have said, Father, I forget how old you are now. You're like 31, something like that. If someone would have said for me to script it out and said, "What's the perfect son?" I would not have described the man he is today.
Wow.
And so he's exceeded all those expectations. So I'm not trying to be corny and mushy. I'm being sincere.
Oh, you're doing good, man.
I would say for anybody who's trying to do anything, leadership and purpose is, even though it sounds like a cliche, you hear it all the time. Leadership and purpose is a phenomenon. Let me say it again.
Yeah.
Leadership and purpose is a phenomenon, meaning everybody can't do it and everybody doesn't do it. There's so many people who die who never fulfill their purpose. That lets me know that there's something special about walking in your purpose. And walking in your purpose answers every question. My purpose tells me what time to wake up in the morning. My purpose tells me what to wear. My purpose tells me, it drives me on what I want to drive as a car, because I know my purpose. And so everything I do is centered around my purpose. I drive the car I drive for purpose. I wake up in the morning at a certain time because it answers every question. What church you go to should answer, purpose should answer what church you go to. It should answer who's your pastor.
Yeah.
And because if their purpose don't connect to your purpose, they're not the right pastor.
Right. Yeah.
It's related, so it's all the way around. So purpose is a phenomenon. Everybody doesn't do it. Leadership is a phenomenon because we use it all the time, but everybody is not an effective leader.
Wow.
And so who's a leader because right now you got to lead through a crisis. Leadership rises right now. And so you want to know who's a really good leader? Find out who's doing their thing right now, because you got to lead through a crisis. It pushes you against the wall. So leadership is a phenomenon. And just because someone has a title or calls himself a leader doesn't make them a leader. So purpose and leadership are a phenomenon. Don't forget that everybody doesn't walk in it.
Definitely. I love that, man. I want a quick shout out. I see Z, she's on the live. That is the wife, Greg. And I also see Queen Christine. She's on the line. Queen Christine Scott. She said, hey to everybody. She said, my men are awesome. She said, awesome job. We did an awesome job raising him. So we definitely shout out to Tiana's on the line. JT Visbel, I don't know you guys know him. He said, what's up to you guys? JT Visbel, he says, what's up to the Scots? And so praise God. We appreciate you, family. For those of you who jumped on the live stream and shared your support and love. And I pray something was said that was beneficial during this time. Listen, I'm a personal believer that there's something great after this pandemic. You've been listening to the governor. They're doing a soft opening in regards to our cities and our regions, but everything's going to be shifted. It's going to be totally different. We are currently in the era of the unknown. We are going through, the tunnel. It's dark and there are lights, and we don't see the end of the tunnel. But I believe that there is something beneficial. I don't think God put us through this tunnel just for us to die off. Some people have not made it this far, but God has grace and gave some of us mercy to see this far. But there's a reason for it, and so prayerfully, the life principles that you pick up along the way will not just be beneficial to you and your family, but also put you in a position to add value to other people, whether it is through entrepreneurship or whether it's just by making an impact. At the end of the day, I think we need to harvest every life experience in this life and consider, how does this benefit other people? I believe every experience in life, good, bad, ugly, and indifferent, whether you've lost a loved one, lost a job, whether you're even now losing motivation, inspiration for life, I think what God is doing is he is creating a new soil, and he's challenging us, putting us in a position to harvest these experiences that will benefit us in the long run. If it is business, praise God. If it is ministry, praise God. Whatever the case may be, is learn life experiences, take time to educate yourself, inform yourself, and get prepared, because when the opportunities are presented to you, you want to make sure that you don't pass them by. And so, Greg, thank you so much for what you do, man, your investment, you and the family. Gregory, thank you so much, man. You are definitely a lion for this generation who is roaring and giving wisdom principles. We honor both of you, and we thank you for the legacy of the Scots. Real talk. So love you, family. Have an amazing
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all. You guys have an awesome night, and stay connected, all right? Take care, family.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.